Ferdinand Magellan. You've heard the name, right? It's legendary, synonymous with the first ever trip all the way around the globe. But the grand story of triumph you probably learned in school? Well, that's not the whole story, not even close. The real story is a brutal 3-year epic of mutiny, starvation, and death.
This number right here, tells the true story of the voyage, 18. That's how many men made it back to Spain, out of the 270 who sailed out 3 years earlier.
Think about that, an over 90% casualty rate. So the real question isn't just how they circled the globe, it's what kind of hell did they have to go through to actually do it? The answer, or a big part of it, lies with the ship, the Victoria. It was the only one of the original 5 ships to make it all the way back, and its lonely return tells this incredible story of ambition, betrayal, and just unbelievable endurance. To really understand how it all went so wrong, we have to go all the way back to the beginning. Okay, so picture this. It's the early 16th century. Spices like cloves and cinnamon were basically like today's oil. They were worth an absolute fortune. The problem was Portugal controlled the only known sea route to the Spice Islands, going east. The mission then was for Spain to find a new route, a westward route, to break Portugal's monopoly and get a piece of that action.
And these are 2 main players. On the left, you've got Ferdinand Magellan. He's a brilliant, battle-hardened Portuguese sailor, but he's got a major chip on his shoulder because his own king basically told him to get lost. On the right is the very young, very ambitious King Charles I of Spain. So Magellan takes his crazy idea to Charles, who, seeing a chance to one-up the Portuguese, agrees to fund the whole thing.
And the potential payoff was just immense. The deal King Charles offered Magellan was insane. A 10-year monopoly on the new route, he'd get to be governor of any lands he discovered, a 20% cut of all the profits. This wasn't just a voyage of exploration, it was a high-stakes business deal that promised almost unimaginable power and wealth. So with the deal signed, the 5-ship Armada de Molucca set sail in 1519. But that dream of riches? Yeah, it pretty quickly turned into a complete nightmare of chaos and hardship. The trouble started almost right away. I mean, things just fell apart. You have to remember, Magellan was a Portuguese captain in charge of a mostly Spanish fleet, and his own Spanish captains were basically plotting against him from day one. In less than a year, he'd have to put down a full-blown mutiny, he'd lose one ship in a storm, and he'd have another one just up and desert him. The Easter Mutiny, wow, that was the real turning point. They were trapped for the winter in what's now Argentina, and 3 of his captains decided to make their move and seize control of their ships. But they totally underestimated Magellan. He was absolutely ruthless. He launched a counterattack, sending an assassin to kill one captain, Luis Mendoza, right in his own cabin. Then he had another one beheaded, and he marooned the ringleader, Juan de Cartagena, leaving him to die on a desolate island. The message was crystal clear. Magellan was in charge, period. And the cost to the fleet was it was staggering. Of the 5 ships that set out from Spain, only the Victoria would ever see home again. The others were wrecked, captured, deserted, or even scuttled, intentionally sunk, because they literally didn't have enough men left alive to sail them. After all that chaos, they finally had their moment of triumph. In late 1520, they found it, the fabled passage connecting the Atlantic and the Pacific. Magellan called it the All Saints Channel, but of course, history would name it for him. And yet, even in this incredible moment of success, disaster struck again. His largest supply ship, the San Antonio, used the confusion of exploring the strait to just desert the fleet and sail all the way back to Spain. So they emerge into this huge, vast ocean that Magellan names the Pacific, but what came next was just horrifying. They expected a quick crossing. It took 98 agonizing days, and they began to starve. The expedition's chronicler, Antonio Pigafetta, wrote this haunting account. They ate ox hides off the rigging, sawdust, and rats. Scurvy just ripped through the crew, and 19 men died before they ever even saw land again. So after finally reaching what is now the Philippines, the whole mission takes a really strange turn. You'd think Magellan, having survived mutiny and starvation, would be focused on the spices. But no, he shifts his focus to a new obsession, converting the local population to Christianity, and it was a decision that would end up costing him his life. At first, he was incredibly successful. He forms an alliance with a local ruler, Raja Hamaban, and baptizes thousands of people. But this religious zeal dragged him deeper and deeper into local politics and rivalries that he completely misunderstood. And this all led him to the island of Mactan. The local chief there, a man named Lapu-Lapu, refused to convert. In a moment of just supreme arrogance, Magellan decided to make an example of him. He attacked with just 49 of his men, facing an estimated 1,500 warriors. It wasn't a battle, it was a slaughter, and Ferdinand Magellan was killed on the beach, thousands of miles from his goal. And the disaster wasn't even over. Just days after Magellan's death, his supposed ally, Raja Humabon, betrayed them. He invited about 30 of the remaining officers to a feast where they were ambushed and murdered. The survivors fled in terror, and they were forced to burn another one of their ships, the Concepcion, because they no longer had enough men to sail it. So let's recap. Magellan is dead, the crew is decimated, the expedition is an absolute failure. They are lost, they're leaderless, and they're being hunted. But out of this complete wreckage, a new, very unlikely leader emerged to guide the survivors on the final, impossible leg of their journey. His name was Juan Sebastián Elcano. And here's the ultimate irony of this whole story. Elcano had been one of the ringleaders in the Easter Mutiny against Magellan. He had been pardoned but put in chains. So now, the very man who tried to overthrow the mission was the only one left who could actually complete it. So under Elcano's command, the Victoria finally reached the Spice Islands and loaded up its precious cargo of cloves. Then began the long, long voyage home. They sailed all the way across the Indian Ocean and around Africa, desperately trying to avoid any Portuguese ports. By this point, they were starving again, barely able to even keep the ship afloat. When they finally limped into a port in Cape Verde, they made this bizarre discovery. According to their meticulous ship's log, it was Wednesday, July 9th. But on shore, everyone said it was Thursday, July 10th. By sailing west, all the way around the world, they had lost a full day, providing the first practical proof that we would eventually need an international dateline. So the final tally is just stark. What began as a 5-ship armada looking for riches ended with a single, battered ship and just 18 starving survivors. As a business venture, it was a disaster. As a human endeavor, it was a catastrophe. And yet, what they had accomplished was something no one in history had ever done before. So, was it a triumph or was it a tragedy? The truth is, it was both. The voyage was an almost unimaginable human disaster, built on ambition and brutality. And yet, it forever changed our understanding of the planet. It didn't just prove the world was round. It redrew the map, it opened up new trade routes, and it fundamentally changed how humanity saw its place in the world. It was a monumental achievement, paid for at an impossible price.